Président, Monsieur le Premier ministre, Messieurs les ministres, Mesdames et Messieurs les ministres, mes chers collègues, l'Europe est à un tournant critique de son histoire. Le bouclier américain se dérobe, l'Ukraine risque d'être abandonnée, la Russie renforcée. Washington est devenu la cour de Néron, un empereur incendiaire, des courtisans soumis et un bouffon sous kétamine chargé de l'épuration de la fonction publique. C'est un drame pour le monde libre, mais c'est d'abord un drame pour les États-Unis. Le message de Trump est que rien ne sert d'être son allié puisqu'il ne vous défendra pas, qu'il vous imposera plus de droits de douane qu'à ses ennemis et vous menacera de s'emparer de vos territoires tout en soutenant les dictatures qui vous envahissent. Le roi du deal est en train de montrer ce qu'est l'art du deal à plat ventre. Il pense qu'il va intimider la Chine en se couchant devant Poutine, mais Xi Jinping, devant un tel naufrage, est sans doute en train d'accélérer les préparatifs de l'invasion de Taïwan. Jamais dans l'histoire un président des États-Unis n'a capitulé devant l'ennemi. Jamais aucun n'a soutenu un agresseur contre un allié. Jamais aucun n'a piétiné la Constitution américaine, pris autant de décrets illégaux, révoqué les juges qui pourraient l'en empêcher, limogé d'un coup l'état-major militaire, affaibli tous les contre-pouvoirs et pris le contrôle des réseaux sociaux. Ce n'est pas une dérive illibérale, c'est un début de confiscation de la démocratie. Rappelons-nous qu'il n'a fallu qu'1 mois, 3 semaines et 2 jours pour mettre à bas la République de Weimar et sa Constitution. J'ai confiance dans la solidité de la démocratie américaine et le pays proteste déjà. Mais en 1 mois, Trump a fait plus de mal à l'Amérique qu'en 4 ans de sa dernière présidence. Nous étions en guerre contre un dictateur, nous nous battons désormais contre un dictateur soutenu par un traître.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
A
Wow.
little
Wow. Welcome.
Mingus Big Band
Yeah.
Haitian fight
Perfect.
song.
Perfect. Welcome everybody.
Mingus hits me in on my feels. He's a bass player and one of my favorite composers.
Jim's a bass player as well. Welcome everybody to Radpod and Not So Chill. I'm Heidi Kuda. I'm here with Jim Stewartson and High Fidelity and Europe. If you're listening, the world needs you. Yeah, we should just start right in with Europe.
I was told by a cadaver in the New York Times that we're supposed to play possum.
Wait, what? Well, what?
Oh, the GOP's gonna implode, and we just have to sit back and watch it happen.
You didn't hear Carville. Carville had a brilliant idea that the Democrats should just do nothing, just roll over and just watch and just we'll say "told you" in 4 years when the elections come around.
How's that?
Doesn't Carville have connections to some Silicon Valley hedge fund bullshit?
What I said was that James Carville is what happens when Peter Thiel walks too close to a corpse.
Oh my God. Well,
sorry.
My feeling is,
that would make Thiel a necromancer for all the D&D geeks.
When I saw Carville caping for Palantir, so anywho.
So the main question I have is, how did that work out? How did not doing anything to fight back work out? How's that working out for America? Not so good. Europe, if you're listening, Jim, let's start there. Let's just talk to Europe for a minute.
Well, that's pretty easy, and I've been writing about this for a while, and it's just getting more and more clear. Europe needs to kick America out of NATO. Donald Trump today, and he's done this before, but he wasn't the president, said that he would not honor Article 5 if somebody was behind on their bills. Now, that's not how Article 5 at all in any way whatsoever works. And when the United States was attacked on 9/11, the only time in the history of the world that Article 5 has ever been invoked was by the United States because, oh my God, we're under attack. And guess who came to help? Ukraine and France and England and all these countries that Donald Trump is shitting all over, as we speak.
Don't forget Poland.
Yes, a lot of countries, but the point is that Donald Trump and the PayPal mafia have declared war on Europe. They have, as I've written many times, handed Eastern Europe at a minimum to Putin in exchange for their North American Reich, right? Greenland, Canada, where are the tariffs? Canada and Mexico. Where is he threatening in the last day? Greenland and Panama. Look on the map. It's not difficult. So what Europe needs to do is kick us out because we've already left. We should not be allowed to have it both ways. It's that fucking simple. We're threatening Greenland, which is Denmark's and owned effectively by Denmark, who's NATO. We sent Hegseth, Tulsi fucking Gabbard, and JD Vance to the border. Why would we send a DNI to the border? What? Because they're going to invade it. And I'm it's not blue and on. They're troops. They're all getting ready for it. They're telling us over and over again. So Europe needs to understand that the world has been carved up in the minds of these fucking whack jobs already. And so the only thing you can do is get in their way. It's that easy. So you need to kick us out. You need to bring Ukraine in. And I know, by the way, Maloney even said today that, maybe not bring him into NATO, but give him Article 5, which is very interesting, right? But Europe needs to flex up and be like, wait a minute, you don't get to carve us up. We are Europe. And by the way, Ukraine is European, as I keep telling you over and over and over again. So that's number one is NATO needs to kick us the hell out of Europe. Europe needs to ban all of Elon Musk's shit. Like turn Tesla plants into weapons manufacturing. Build an army of Europe. Stop. You cannot rely on the United States. Moreover, you should kick the U.S. out of their bases in Europe because we're all up in your shit right now. You know, even though Donald Trump has been taking us out of there, like, probably maybe not such a great idea, you know? Like, the point being that Europe needs to step up. And I wrote an article today called Pincer Movement, which is this feeling that I have, and I'm looking at it and I'm watching fucking SpaceX falling out of space and shit today, and you know, Tesla's down 50%, and you know, it's not going super great, right, for them. You know, they've been very excited about it, but a lot of shit's genuinely falling apart. And so my feeling about this is we need a pincer movement. We need to pop this like a pimple. Sorry for the image. But Europe over here needs to fucking form up, right? Like, say we are a live actor in this argument right here on one side, and then, you know, on the other side, that gives the people inside the U.S. who don't want this broke dick Nazi who's got spaceships falling out of space and literally has no idea what he's doing other than wants to kill as many people that don't look like him as possible, right? That's all we know about this fucking guy. And so there's a lot of us, I promise you, a lot of us out here in the U.S. like, fucking told you, but you know, we need some backup because we don't have it from our own goddamn government. And that's what everyone needs to understand. I can't call the FBI. Guess why?
Yeah.
Because the dumbass who sued me is the director.
Yeah.
If something goes wrong, who am I going to call? Ghostbusters or some shit. I don't know. But it's not the government of the United States. So what I'm saying, you know, as a favor, and that's all we can ask right now, because boy, howdy, did we fuck up, is if you can give us one side of the pincer, I promise you there are people here, and it may take some time, and it's going to be a fucking mess, and we got to find leaders and organize and all these things, but we'll give you the other side of the pincer, and we will squeeze these motherfuckers out. So anyway, that is my thought on
that is your opening thought. You know, it's interesting because when we had Dr. Nancy McLean on the first time, she talked about why the GOP kept falling in line with MAGA. And she described a pincher that had like Coke money on the top and Fox's aroused base on the bottom. And if they stepped out of line, as some of them did, it was a career ender. So it's really interesting that you use that analogy. And also, Europe, if you're listening, do you like having your national health care in your countries? Do you like having public education that's funded? Do you like having streets without guns? Do you enjoy your government services, that they're there when you need them, that you have safety nets? If you enjoy all that stuff, that is what these oligarchs that are working directly with Putin are trying to take away from your children, your elderly. They're trying to take it away from all of you. So if you care about all that stuff, time to really toughen up against active measures and information warfare, because the narratives in your own countries are being twisted, and people are being wedged apart like they were in America, and we were too arrogant or too caught up in reality TV to actually see it. And those of us who cried about it and screamed about it were marginalized to the point where it was hard to rise above the noise. But the bottom line is, you don't want to be like us. And if you look around at all these countries that Russia is meddling in, there's always an oligarch, there's always some top guy who everyone thinks is a boy genius, and then there's always the network underneath him, and their job is to take away all the things that make living in your democracy wonderful and beautiful, imperfect as they are. So I just keep hoping that now that it is so obvious that America cannot be trusted, you know, that Europe can actually see really what happened here and what they don't want, and find a way to ensure that it doesn't happen in their countries, whatever it takes, whatever the stakes.
Yeah, if there have been times in history where, and God knows it took us a lot of prodding, and we were fucking up then too, but where we come to some assistance, right? And vice versa. This is not a two-way street by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, a one-way street. It's been a two-way street. Forgive me. And this is one of those times. This is a historic moment, right? We are literally in this period between, not to always come back, but this is really where we are, between when Hitler was, anointed chancellor, and the Reichstag fire, which then led to the Enabling Act, which led to all the bad things. Hitler was doing many of the same type of things, right? Yeah. That he was doing now, and he was doing it through the legal avenues. He was doing it through the Reichstag, right, until there was a shock. So my the thing that's sort of on my radar right now is, not necessarily that they've got some huge false flag planned or something, already for a Reichstag, but just that they've opened us up to so much danger that something is bound to happen, right? I mean, you got fucking Tulsi Gabbard out here in charge of our intelligence agencies literally doing like QAnon PR, right? Yeah. Like, when's the last time I'm as smart as you people are, I bet you most of you don't know who the DNI was for Joe Biden. I bet you don't. You should, because she worked at Palantir, which has always made me feel really fucking weird, to be perfectly honest.
I remember the day I figured that out.
Apple Haynes. But DNIs are not supposed to be some loudmouth dipshit down at the border with JV Vance and Pete fucking heck. What's the Secretary of Defense doing at the border of Mexico? Mm-hmm. That's just how dumb this is, and
or dangerous.
That too. But one little aphorism, I want to throw out you, and I think it's self-evident. But remember that every single thing that they burn down, we have the absolute right to build back the way we want. This is the real life version of you broke it, you bought it, motherfucker. You could take that broken ass shit that you burn down and go to your seastead off the coast of Antarctica or whatever. I don't give a shit. But you're gonna leave us alone while we learn from our mistakes and build it better.
It's a lovely thought. I don't know how we get out of it. I'm so concerned about the fact that people are still using technology that is owned by the enemies, and they don't.
How long it's going to take, or how many people are going to die in the process, but it will happen.
High fidelity.
Well, that's the whole problem, isn't it? It's not enough people are really feeling the pain yet, right? Instead, we have this yo-yoing chaos that's putting people in a desperate state of mind. We have corporations that are demanding people go back to the office and begin commuting again. We have the government laying off massive numbers of people. We have corporations laying off a large number of people. Jobless claims are going up. I expect the next jobs report is going to be abysmal, which will look bad for Trump, but I'm sure they'll try to spin it off in some way, shape, or form.
Hundreds of thousands of people. I'm sure it's going to be great.
Well, here's what's going to happen, though, is all these people are going to be out of work. Unemployment systems are going to be taxed. Things are going to get broken. People are going to be desperate. Ultimately, if it continues in this vein, things are not going to go well for the people in charge. The thing about Americans is when they get desperate, they get mad and they have guns.
I have a solution.
Yes.
Yeah,
I wrote
that's what
an
they want,
article.
though. They want civil war. We don't want
No,
that.
no,
Go
no.
ahead, Jim.
It doesn't. No, we don't
No.
need. Well, okay, but a little tiny civil war. Bear with me. There's a simple equation. I want everyone to think about the number 8 billion. There's 8 billion human beings on planet Earth. All right. Now think about 3,000 people, right? You could fit them in like a Vegas hotel.
A very small town.
A small Vegas hotel, a very large motel, right? Billionaires, all the billionaires in the entire world, you can fit them in, like the Taj Mahal, fucking Reno, right? Just imagine all the billionaires are there. They're worth $17 trillion, 17 trillion dollars. Make it 16, make it easy for the math. Everybody gets $2,000 if you just get rid of the billionaires. Again, no, I'm not suggesting any murder. Just the money. And we'll be nice about it. We want people to be successful, really successful and rich and fabulously wealthy. Meaning you can have $1,000 million, $1 billion, $1,000 fucking million. You could be a millionaire 1,000 times. You can live in palaces, have your kids be in palaces, have your dog in a palace, fucking palaces everywhere. But that's it. After that, you win. You get a trophy. You did it. You hit maximum jackpot. Congratulations. And then anything else goes to the people you took it from in the first place. Because if you have $1 billion, that's a shitload of other people's labor and resources. You understand that, right? And if you have $1 billion and you keep wanting fucking more money and you keep wanting to exploit the labor and resources of others just to hoard it because you have no actual practical fucking use for it ever, then something is wrong with you. You're really sick. Now, if you have $10 billion and you keep going after that, you're a psychopath. If you have $100 billion and you keep going, you're the fucking Antichrist. Because by definition, every single thing that you do is hurting other people, stealing resources and keeping other people from being happy and healthy. And so it's a very simple calculation. There's 3,000 billionaires and 8 billion of us. So it doesn't actually take everybody agreeing. Just a very large part of us to collectively be like, I don't know, let's find a nice hotel for them. I'm being facetious with that part. But we should literally just fucking cancel the class of billionaires. These people have been waging war on us. There is not a single fucking billionaire you can point to me. And yeah, Mark Cuban, whatever, Swifty, don't worry, Swifties, we're not counting fucking, Taylor or whatever, because they're just throwing money at her. She's not even asking for it, right? So, but all these fucking vipers, every single one of you who are being silent, who are rolling down there to Mar-a-Lago to suck the fucking orange Cheeto, like, fuck you. We have no reason for you. There's nothing good that you bring. All you do is bring poverty and terror to other people. And there's a huge overlap with the systems that make everybody so stupid that they can't even see you.
Yeah.
That's how dirty and vicious and fucked up all of you are. Prove me wrong. Any single one of you, any of you prove me wrong. And until you don't, I think it's a pretty simple solution, and I will advocate for it thenceforth.
Shout out
We
to
didn't used to
Mackenzie
have
Scott. Mackenzie Scott is doing good things.
All right.
That.
I get Jim's point. It's just a reminder. We didn't used to have them. And the uber wealthy used to also contribute and pay their share. And we used to also break up, monopolies. And to Jim's point, if you look around the globe, who owns the tech platforms, who owns the media, in all these countries that are pushing, out democratic voices. And so it's certainly, I know that you're being cheeky, but I also get your point. It's what Nancy McLean, again, talking about democracy in chains, as Nancy McLean said, we need protection from them. So we had the blessing again of bringing our friend Dr. Marci Shore, Yale professor of intellectual history, on our show again this week. It felt very urgent. Marci had reached out in frustration because she had done a pretty profound interview with a right-wing news outlet that then disappeared her interview from the internet. And so I said, hey, Marci, why don't you come on RadPod? So she, of course, is a expert in Eastern European history. Her husband, Tim Snyder, is one of the most important human beings in this moment in time. And the two of them together are just incredibly vital to our understanding of basically the Russian aggression and, of course, the history of Ukraine. And Marci, of course, also has taught us a lot about Poland. And I would love to hear her first clip. She's responding, of course.
When I was watching that, I thought, there is no bottom. There is, you think you are prepared for everything, and then there is still more depravity to come. I didn't think I could be shocked anymore, but I was shocked when I watched that video yesterday, and filled with a kind of shame and disgust that I still don't quite have words for. It was so appalling that I thought, how, as an American, am I ever even going to,
We got to work on how you cue me up.
You guys are all right. You're getting better. But I wrote about that fucking thing too. One of the thing that I think people don't God damn it, Hi-Fi, you just distracted me, and I can't even remember what I was going to say.
You were writing about the Trump Zelenskyy.
Heidi, thank you. Heidi, your mic is off.
You wrote about what happened a week ago in the Oval Office. Yes. The knocking from below that we all heard.
And
I think your point, what you wrote about, Jim, was how basically Zelenskyy was like, okay, so now everybody sees it, right? Y'all saw that, right?
That was the positive. Yes, thank you. I was going to take from it is we saw the worst world attempted leader. Idi Amin could have done a better LARP.
Yeah.
Right. I'm not, Trump's got a while before he gets to the actual genociding and stuff, and well, yeah, I know. But it was he was the worst that I've ever seen. But on the other side of that, now, Zelenskyy had shown Trump photos of emaciated, what a lot of people may not know about that moment. was showing emaciated soldiers that had come home as POWs from the Russians, who the Russians on state TV were mocking as, oh, they were a little thinner or whatever. Like literal, if you've seen these pictures, they look like Holocaust victims. But I mean, and so that's what Trump had been looking at in the Oval Office, and Trump was, if you see at the beginning, was having a little bit of a hard time finding a window to start the attack, and so it was JV Vance on the other side of the room that jumped in, and then everybody's juices get going or whatever. But think about what Zelenskyy is going through emotionally in that moment. Imagine you're in charge, you're responsible for a country of 20 million people who's getting bombed every fucking day, all day long, by a fucking criminal that the guy sitting next to you is, in love with, right? And you got to listen to him and this little fucking munchkin on the other side of the room who has no idea what he's talking about and is clearly just there to be a dick. And he's got to sit there and listen to Marjorie Taylor Greene's fucking beard, Brian Glenn, ask Zelenskyy why he didn't have a suit on when Elon Musk was there like 4 hours before with his kid on his shoulders and his fucking MAGA hat on his head. Right. So imagine the self-control, the steel you got to have in your fucking spine to not roll over, but also to stay clear of what they wanted. And that's the important part. What they wanted from Zelenskyy was a reaction. That was a planned, trained operation to try and make Zelenskyy emotional. That's been their goal, is to make him look weak, to make him look emotional, to make, to give him all these qualities that motherfucker does not have. And the fact that he was able to he knew that trap was coming. And my article is called the head-on collision. He drove right into that head-on collision, knowing it was coming. And came out the other side of it, with everybody in the planet knowing exactly who is who. So that's the good news, I think, to pull out of it is we have a leader of the free world. It's just not the one in.
We talk a lot about theater craft on this show, and that whole theater of war that we're experiencing. But I think also what we saw was America's full surrender to Russia on that day, and I think Europe actually is completely aware of that. High Fidelity, go ahead and make a comment, but I really want to see Marci's next clip.
Well, let's just do Marci's next clip then.
It was such a decisive moment of the end of the affair that I felt like Europeans in particular, perhaps finally, belatedly, and this of course started with Munich, were shaken into realizing they absolutely cannot trust Washington. This idea of America as, despite all our problems and our hypocrisy and our racism and our violence, and that it was still somehow, the world's deepest liberal democracy and the land of the free and the home of the brave, and that everything that Soviet communism was not, and will in the end be the rescuer and guarantor of freedom. I feel like perhaps the last vestiges of that, that this were yesterday finally were dissolving. I mean, the responses of all of these European leaders were so unequivocal. And many of them are often equivocal. But even the ones who are often equivocal were responding in an unequivocal way. That there was just such disgust and such a sense of betrayal. I mean, one of the things I've been telling my Ukrainian friends and colleagues, and not just Ukrainians, but other Europeans as well, since the election is you cannot trust us. There's this kind of Freudian denial that, okay, but it couldn't really be that bad. But in the end, it's the United States. In the end, they couldn't actually go that far. In the end, we couldn't really switch sides. Your president couldn't really be working for Putin. I said, no, you absolutely cannot trust us. It has to be over. You have to take that in. These are not people you can work with, either rationally or cynically. They are volatile. They are narcissistic. They are more.
Fuck yeah. I had a little bit of a fit because I saw like a NBC News, analysis, like, like some American allies are considering whether they should share so much intelligence with America. I'm like,
Yeah, no shit.
What year are we in? I mean, first of all, one thing that still collapses me is how everybody seems to be so surprised about that outcome happened, first of all, in the election, and then the result that they told us was going to happen happened. Like, nobody fucking figured this out at a time, really. But anyway, Europe, yes, I think really, has got a quite the shakaroo, as it were, and hopefully is really starting to take some heed. And I'm just going to be yelling my ass off as loud as I can that no, we can't be, not only can't we be trusted, we need to be like excised. Like I had sorry for the image, but the Five Eyes needs to find some scissors and make themselves four eyes right away. Like, find the fat fucking eye and poke that shit out, because we don't belong there. Now, here's an example. The UK wanted to share some intel with Ukraine to help defend their civilians from Russian fucking missiles. And their partners in the Five Eyes told them not to. Us.
Yeah.
The Fifth Eye told the United Kingdom not to share intelligence that was sourced from America. For Americans, can't have it. So it's so comical at this point that the more of this bumbling and stumbling and this and that, like, cut the shit off, man.
Yeah.
We're okay with it. We want it. Again, the stronger you can be, the more isolated you can make us, the easier it's going to be for us to squeeze these motherfuckers out from the inside.
Maybe the G7 should be the G6. You know what I'm saying?
So, yeah.
I mean, it's going to be the it's going to be the G8 or one or the other. Yeah. He already wants. I mean, that's already happening.
It's just, again, we haven't even had time to mourn the end of, of this, as she said, it's the end of the affair. And,
morning.
All we can just keep saying is, Europe, if you're listening, let's see the third clip.
we have to keep speaking out, even if it doesn't seem effective. We cannot put our heads down and get in line. And this is something I feel as a historian looking back at the 1930s. The fact is that most people, most of the time, will put their heads down and get in line. And there was Vance tweeted right around the time of the inauguration that my husband, Tim Snyder, was an embarrassment to Yale, where we're faculty members. We've long been faculty members. And what terrified me was not that Vance tweeted this, but that none of my colleagues, and especially my colleagues in the law school, publicly spoke up to defend him. And not because I suspected they really liked Vance or were on their side, and not because I suspected the university administration, who I know loves Tim, was on his side, but because I feel like there are moments where people become interested in the self-preservation of the institution. Where Masha Gessen just wrote a great piece where she said, what it's rational to put one's head down and not protest, because in any individual case, you're taking risk and bearing cost. But those actions that are rational to appease and to obey on an individual level are
boom, precisely what makes tyranny possible. Her husband, of course, wrote on tyranny. And the other amazing thing he did was he explained that Donald Trump lives in a fictional world, which is why if somebody shows him pictures of torture victims, of people who were starved in war, it doesn't have any meaning to him because he is very comfortable in his fictional world. And he's been trying to push everybody into that fictional world, which is why we are always such huge advocates over and over again for truth and reality, because it's what we need to get through this somehow. Jim.
Masha Gessen also wrote an article called Putin's plan to Putin has a plan to carve up the world, and Trump just gave him a knife, or something very close to that, which was about Dugin and Eurasianism and how they're planning on carving up the world. And I happen to have written an article called, the plan to carve up the world is underway 3 months ago, about Dugin and, Eurasianism and all of that. I'm not even in no way saying anything about Masha Gessen, who I think is a genius and had no idea about my article whatsoever. It's just that this obvious thing, that is happening, right? That there is this plan to carve up the world is finally, starting to, actually be seen in things like mainstream media and whatnot. And I think, again, goes back to, go ahead, high five, because you're finger, man. There's something going on here.
I was just thinking about the fact that, like, if you watch American media, and I keep an eye on American media, no one's really talking about the fact that China has a bunch of destroyers off the west coast of Australia doing live fire exercises right now. Like, the world is being,
come on. I don't know what that's about.
No. It's a pattern of threat and carry through. As that's they say what they're going to do.
Yes.
Project 2025. This is what we're going to do to America. Oh no, it's not what we're going to do to America. Oh, you elected us. Guess what? Here's what we're going to do to America. They tell you what they're going to do straight to your face, and people are like, "There's no way they do that," and yet they continuously fucking do exactly what they said.
Yeah, I mean, for the record, I don't think China is gonna try and capture Australia or anything. But what they are gonna do is capture Taiwan. The very, very clear signals are, and again, I have no idea how they communicate with each other in their back rooms, but there's clearly an agreement with Xi that Xi, you can have Taiwan, Putin, you have Eastern Europe, and we're gonna basically take all of this whole hemisphere, right? That's basically it. And you know, so you know, and but here's just a little, and not to make things complicated, but very briefly, because things are complicated. In my view, China is one of the things that is going to be a big dividing line here. And regardless of, you know, whether it's them tussling, you know, in the Fourth Reich while we, you know, slave along as peasants, or whether we can use it as, you know, weaponry, China is a contentious bone, because there are a lot of people who have the PayPal mafia doesn't want to get into a war with China. They don't give a shit. They think China has a lot of great labor, and they're happy to use it, and they're happy to make a deal with, you know, with Xi, and you can have Taiwan or whatever, but, you know, we're gonna get some money out of it. They're you know, totally fine with that. But there's a huge part of the kind of overall, like, American insurgent infrastructure, which is rabidly anti-communist, right? Rabidly anti-China. The Flynns and the Princes and the Hegseths and the Hobbes and the fucking, like, all the Christo-fascists, the Opus Dei, right? Which intersects with the Supreme Court and, you know, the Federal Society and all of that shit, all rabidly anti-China. And so there's going to be, you know, and already is, you can see it, this weird game where they're constantly making excuses for each other about, you know, what they're going to do about all these commies, because Trump's like, oh, Xi and I, we get along, and I'm not going to, you know, I promised I wasn't going to say anything more about the China virus. He really said that. Like, oh, he said he's going to put some money in, so I'm going to forget about him killing all those Americans, right? So there's this whole transactional part of this you know, movement, and then an ideological part, and China is right on the fault line between those two. And will be very, very interesting to watch.
It's all interesting. And I go back to it being all theater. Remember Trump and his Chinese bank account, and of course, China being the patron saint of Russia when Russia sanctions, who rescues Russia but China. So it's also freaking weird. But one thing I want to do is go back to
it's theater, and it isn't, right? Like,
yes,
it's theater covering up for real shit. Like, you know, like, who's going to get things like Taiwan?
But back to Masha Gessen. She said or wrote something really pivotal, you know, about a decade ago, how lying is the message. And I read that in a David Frum article in 2017, January 2017, lying is the message. And that helped inform my work so much, because at the time, media was just playing whack-a-mole with the lies, just, you know, all the smart reporters just chasing the lies. It's a lie, it's a lie. People on, you know, the duties, you know, lie duty, whatever. They weren't even calling it lies back then. It was still falsehoods. But when lying is the message, you can see the cult dynamics. You can see how it's the unreality is being created to twist people's minds. You can see how one thing about Trump is that he is a very effective propagandist. And so much of that was missed. And I just want to thank her very much for actually, you know, informing my work a decade ago, and thank David Frum for kind of being the vehicle for that. So just a quick little shout out. Can we see the last?
Brilliant.
Yeah, incredible. Can we see the last of the Marci clips?
Yes.
Postmodern creation of a fictitious world, series of fictitious worlds that are quite different from 20th century ideologies. This taking apart of the fact that not a vision with a teleology or a clear goal or a coherent worldview, but rather an attempt to disassemble any notion that there is such a thing as truth. And therefore you're, rather than really mobilizing a population, you're demobilizing a population and making that population feel helpless. That comes from Russia. You know, and I'm not saying that comes from Russia in a genetic sense. There's a very particular history of how that happens with, you know, spin doctors who call themselves political technologists, like Surkov and like Gleb Pavlovsky in the 1990s. You know, it was a historical moment. It's a chapter in intellectual history, you know, in which that was consciously put together as a new model of power. You know, and it happened first in Russia. And again, if I recognized, you know, if Tim and I recognized sooner than other people what was going on when Trump appeared on the scene in late 2015 and into 2016, I'm sure it's not because I was smarter than other Americans, but because I had been watching what was happening in Russia.
There's a very simple, I actually learned this from Boone Cutler. The simple way of saying this, Boone Cutler wrote Flynn's book, his sci-fi psyops book. People who are confused do nothing.
Yeah.
That's it. That's it. That's all you got to know. Now look around. Are you fucking confused? Are you wondering what the hell you're supposed to do? I don't know. You know, I don't know how many times I get asked, well, what are we supposed to do? I don't fucking know. I
do.
can't. Well, yes, of course you do. But you know, the whole deer in the headlights thing, right? That is one component of it, right? Where you get surprised and you're like, what the fuck is that? You know, and you get frozen. But it also works when you just get so pummeled that literally your senses don't work anymore. Your ability to filter information doesn't properly compose. And when a lot of that information that you can't properly process is poison, that is how you actually control people's minds. And you know, unfortunately, like, we're looking at mind control. We're looking at the largest mind control experiment that has ever happened.
Yeah, and Marci actually talked about that on her previous visit, how Russia is an example of that entire country is an example of that incredible
engineering,
biggest mind control experiment in history. One thing I'd say, since Jim brought up that point, is this is a good time to think about what independent historians and writers and investigative reporters you want to support. And Tim Snyder and Carol Cadwalader, who actually was not renewed at Guardian Observer, so she has a Substack, so please support it. Support the work, because it's going to get harder and it's going to get meaner. And you already see Trump going after specific people in the media now. So as that's happening, think about who you want to support, because the billionaire and hedge fund owned media is not going to save you in any way. In fact, they will add to the confusion.
Carol's Substack is called Surviving the Broligarchy. So you should look that up, because sometimes not. Also, there's another Substack I recommend highly, Resistance Sentinel. Gal can hopefully maybe put a link in there. It's really good. Will give you some hope every day that there are people who are it's very smart. It's, you know, it's not rah at all. But it will give you a very clear picture of actual things that are actually happening in the world, what they mean to all of us, and what, you know, you can think about doing about it. Highly recommended.
Yeah, and pay attention to the countries like Poland and Finland that have seen this before. Pay attention to the countries that are actually doing crash rearmament and know exactly who and what the enemy is and know the difference between truth and lies, because we're going to need the clarity of allies like that and leadership like that to see our way through this. Hi-fi.
Something else I want to bring up. If you really want to do something to stick it to the man, you can go to stopmikeflynn.com and donate to Jim's legal fund to fuck up Mike Flynn. Because
no, that's really important.
Have there been any updates, Jim, that you'd care to share with the class?
Mike Flynn, Mike Flynn, okay. 2 fucking years ago, Mike Flynn sued me. And finally, 2 years later, I'm gonna, not me personally, but via my phenomenal lawyers who that pays, was going to be able to stand before Mike Flynn, the worst traitor in American history, and ask him some questions. And Mike Flynn, guess what Mike Flynn did? Last time we heard him in front of in a deposition, he pled the fifth. He was such a coward and a traitor that he would not answer whether he agreed with the peaceful transfer of power, because, you know, if he told you the truth, it would get him in trouble. So, you know, the legality of pleading the fifth in a civil deposition when it's your frivolous lawsuit to begin with is, you know, I've got various opinions about it, but you could have probably done it. But to literally let it be scheduled and then just be like, shh, don't tell anyone. He told my lawyers that he had business in DC. Oh, really? Oh, because my defamation clearly did so much damage to your reputation. That you were too busy.
Wasn't he tweeting at the same time?
Yes, he was tweeting all caps, fucking lunacy.
Tweet through it, Mike. Tweet through it, Mike.
I mean, really, like this one that was 1,000 words of caps that you know, about Ukraine and about how the deep state is still in the government, and yelling at Cash and Pam Bondi because they're not being hardcore enough. And by the way, where's the Epstein files?
Yeah, where are the Epstein files?
Last thing about Flynn. By the way, while he's not at my deposition, he's retweeting Liz Crokin, who is going off about Pizzagate. And he's like, Pam Bondi and Cash Patel, you got to look into this Pizzagate thing.
The pizza joint with no basement.
QAnon has taken the government over. Literally.
Yeah.
Anyway,
too bad nobody listened to Jim 4 years ago.
Fucking update is fucking. Sorry, I'm cussing a lot tonight, but whatever.
Bottom line, that the money that we raised has been the reason that Jim has been able to fight back against this lawfare.
The only
It's
reason
actually a
that's happened is
technique
Heidi.
used to, well, me and the team that we put together. There's a few of us.
I know, but Heidi, you got
Heidi did it all.
Y'all don't know. Heidi has saved my ass in all the ways. So, FYI.
There's a few of us. There's friends of Jim.
I'm not emo like she is, but just so you know.
Gosh, I'd like everyone to think I'm so tough. So you guys,
You're
that's
a
our
big
show.
softy, man.
Oh my God, stop blowing my cover.
Anyway.
So So that's our show. We love you. Thank you for your support. Anything else? Final words? Anything you want to say? Anything you got planned for the end of the show? Any deep thoughts from High Fidelity?
Actually, I'm going to give the last word tonight to a band from Louisiana, and they're called Nick Shoulders and the OK Crawdad.
There once was land in this land under starry skies above, but they fenced it in. Now it's interstates and interchanges, monocrop and truck stops, 'cause they fenced it in. I wish that every golf course became a WMA, and every politician knew the rent that we pay just to drink ourselves to death and go to jobs that we hate. Oh, to be fenced in, turned us loose and let us rattle off our chain and lift the pain from our faces. And every hour on the clock or in a classroom or a cell could not contain us. I just don't see any glory in industrial cattle. Truckers' bodies twist from a life in the saddle. Is freedom ringing in your ear, just a death rattle? You won't fence us in. To indigenous people, and I didn't have to live in fear law from the steeple. The grievance make you strong, or is it what